Baghdad, 1258. For 500 years, this city had been the beating heart of the Islamic world, a place of libraries, observatories, and philosophers, where a caliph's word could move armies from Spain to Central Asia. In a matter of weeks, it would become a graveyard. This is the story of how the Abbasid Caliphate, one of history's greatest empires, did not fall in a single blow, but bled out slowly over centuries, before a final storm from the east erased it from the map. So let's begin our story with your subscribe. A golden age in decline. The Abbasids had risen in 750 CE, overthrowing the Umayyad dynasty and moving the center of the Islamic world from Damascus to a newly built round city, Baghdad. Under caliphs like Harun al-Rashid and al-Mamun, it became the intellectual capital of the medieval world, a place where Greek philosophy, Persian administration, and Islamic law fused into something new. But empires built on conquest rarely stay unified forever. By the mid-9th century, cracks were already forming. Provincial governors in Egypt, North Africa, and Khorasan began ruling as hereditary dynasts in all but name, sending tribute to Baghdad while keeping real power for themselves. The caliph becomes a figurehead. The first great blow came from within the palace itself. To secure their throne, 9th-century caliphs relied increasingly on Turkic slave soldiers, the ghilman, for military power. Over time, these soldiers and their commanders became kingmakers, elevating and deposing caliphs almost at will. Then came outside powers. In 945, the Shia Ubayyad dynasty of Iran seized Baghdad and reduced the caliph to a ceremonial figure, still the nominal head of Sunni Islam, but stripped of real political authority. A century later, the Sunni Seljuk Turks replaced the Ubayyads, ruling as sultans while the caliph gave only religious legitimacy to their conquests. By the 11th century, the pattern was set. The Abbasid caliph reigned, but he did not rule. Fragmentation of the Islamic world. Beyond Baghdad, the caliphate's unity was already a memory. Spain and much of North Africa had broken away centuries earlier. Egypt fell under the rival Shia Fatimid Caliphate, which openly challenged Abbasid religious authority. Regional dynasties across Persia and Central Asia fought each other for supremacy, paying only lip service to Baghdad. The caliphate that had once stretched from the Atlantic to the Indus had shrunk, in practical terms, to little more than the city of Baghdad and its surrounding lands, a symbolic center of Sunni Islam clinging to a fraction of its former reach. A storm from the steppe. Far to the east, a new power was reshaping the world. Genghis Khan's Mongol Empire had already crushed the Khwarezmian Empire in the 1220s, and by the 1250s his grandson, Hulagu Khan, turned his armies west with a clear objective: the destruction of the remaining Islamic strongholds, beginning with the assassins of Alamut, and then Baghdad itself. The reigning caliph, al-Mustasim, gravely underestimated the threat. Advisors warned him to submit or prepare seriously for war. He did neither. His forces were small, his diplomacy dismissive, and his faith in the city's legendary status proved fatally misplaced. The Siege of Baghdad, 1258. In January 1258, Hulagu's armies encircled Baghdad. There was also exchange of letters between them in self-proudness. The caliph was also used to be corrupt. Within days, Mongol siege engines had breached the walls. The city that had stood for 5 centuries fell in less than 2 weeks. What followed was one of the most catastrophic sackings in recorded history. Mongol forces massacred much of the population, estimates vary widely, from tens of thousands to several 100,000. The great libraries of Baghdad, including the House of Wisdom, were destroyed. So many books were thrown into the Tigris that the river ran black with ink. Caliph al-Mustasim was captured. When he was presented as prisoner, Hulagu Khan presented a tray full of jewels and asked him to eat. Mustasim replied, "How can I eat this?" Hulagu then asked about his hidden treasure. He replied, under his court. When his court was dug, ample amount of jewels were found. To avoid spilling royal blood, a Mongol taboo, he was executed by being rolled in a carpet and trampled by horses. The last Abbasid caliph who used to proclaimed him as Zilali, shadow of God, Toba, Astagfirullah, was executed by being rolled in a carpet and trampled by horses. A ghost caliphate in Cairo. The destruction of Baghdad ended Abbasid political power, but not quite the Abbasid name. 3 years later, The Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt installed a surviving member of the Abbasid family as caliph in Cairo, a symbolic gesture meant to lend religious legitimacy to Mamluk rule. For over 2.5 centuries, this shadow caliphate persisted, Abbasid in name, powerless in practice, a religious ornament with no throne, no army, and no real claim on the Muslim world's obedience. The final end. The final curtain fell in 1517 when the Ottoman Sultan Selim I conquered Mamluk Egypt. According to tradition, the last shadow caliph, Al-Mutawakkil III, formally ceded the title of caliph to the Ottoman sultans. Either way, the Abbasid line, which had begun in 750 with revolution and grandeur, ended not with a battle, but with a quiet handover of a title that had long since lost its power. Closing. The fall of the Abbasids was not a single catastrophe, but a long unraveling. Internal fragmentation, the rise of military strongmen, the loss of real authority behind a sacred title, and finally, a conquest from the far side of the world that no one in Baghdad saw coming until it was too late. Its legacy, though, outlived its power. The scholarship, architecture, and legal traditions of the Abbasid age shaped the Islamic world and much of global civilization, for centuries after the caliphs themselves had become ghosts of their own empire. Subscribe.